Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? It was interesting today that the Saints kind of did a linebacker swap. Jaylon Smith got signed off the Saints practice squad by the Raiders. And shortly after that was announced, the Saints added former Pro Bowl linebacker Cory Littleton. I'll get into Littleton in a second. First on Smith, Jaylon Smith is one of the bigger surprises this season. Because if you remember back in camp, Andrew Dowell, Saints lose Caden Ellis in free agency. Andrew Dowell was one of the guys we were expecting to step up, was playing really well, had the unfortunate knee injury, season ending. And so the Saints went and signed Jaylon Smith. And we all know Smith's backstory. He's 28 years old, but this was a guy that won the Butkus at Notre Dame, was going to be a top 10 pick in the draft, had the awful injury in the Fiesta Bowl. Cowboys still took him early round 2. He basically had a redshirt year as a rookie and then became a really good player for Dallas. And then they cut him, and he bounced around a little bit, landed with the Giants last year and played really well through their playoff run. And he was a free agent. When Dowell got hurt, the Saints signed him. And he looked really good in the preseason. I remember the second preseason game against the Chargers. In limited snaps, he had 3 tackles, broke up a pass. I mean, he looked really good. It was noticeable that was a guy who had been a starter in the NFL. And so it was really surprising when Jaylon Smith got cut. And we all thought at the time, oh, well, they're cutting him because it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we're cutting you, but don't go anywhere because we're re-signing you tomorrow, which they did, only they signed him to the practice squad where he's been all year. And the Saints have instead relied on DeMarco Jackson and Nafai Sewell and Ty Summers, like young players, and Anthony Orji and Ryan Connolly and Smith had all been on the practice squad. So it was a little surprising. Now, most of the reason that Smith was out of sight, out of mind is it's a huge hat tip to Demario Davis and Pete Werner, who continue to play exceptionally well. Pete Werner and Demario Davis, and Davis even playing it with the knee injury the past couple of weeks, but when you look at total tackles in the NFL right now, Demario Davis is 30th and Pete Werner is 51st. Now, that may not sound impressive, but consider there are 1,133 players currently in the NFL that have recorded a tackle statistic so far this season. Over 1,100. Davis is 30th and Werner is 51st in the NFL. You have a really good starting linebacker tandem there that have been productive and available for you, which is such a key part of this. So with Jaylon Smith getting signed by the Raiders, and of course the only way you can sign a player from someone else's practice squad is to sign them to your 53-man roster. This happened last year with running back Latavius Murray.
Murray, present.
He was on it for that one. Of course, remember, Denver signed him off the Saints practice squad, and the Saints didn't try to keep him. He went to Denver and had a better role there. So this is the second year in a row the Saints have had someone signed off their practice squad to another team's active roster. So Jaylon Smith is now with the Raiders, and the Saints went and signed linebacker Cory Littleton. And Littleton had most recently with the Texans. Had just played in one game this year with the Texans. But Littleton's story is similar. His journey is similar to that of Jaylon Smith's. He's 29 years old. He's in his 8th NFL season, like Jaylon Smith. Back in 2018, remember, he started his career with the Rams. And back in 2018, he made a Pro Bowl and was second-team All-Pro. Cory Littleton had an amazing season with the Rams. Well, then, after he left the Rams, he signed with the Raiders, where he was a teammate of Derek Carr. I'll get back to that. Never really ascended to those heights. He gets cut. Spent last year with the Panthers. So, divisional opponent. And then this year, Cory Littleton's been with the Texans. So since the early success in his career with the Rams, he's bounced around a bit, like Jaylon Smith had the success with the Cowboys and bounced around a little bit. A couple things. Number one, obviously you have a guy that at a point in his career was a starter and a very productive player. So I like when you can get young veterans who have been starters in the NFL before. And that's what you get here with Cory Littleton. Number two, here's another player that was a teammate of Derek Carr's. Like, this list is getting long, isn't it? Foster Moreau, Brian Edwards, Lynn Bowden, Jonathan Abram. They tried to make a deal for Hunter Renfrow at the trade deadline. Now you bring in Littleton. Like, the Saints are very actively pursuing players that played with Derek Carr. This is something we talked about when we heard the news that the Saints tried to sign Hunter Renfrow. The Saints are doing everything they can to try to maximize the ROI on their $150 million quarterback. So if there are players that he likes, that he thinks makes them better, yeah, like they're going to go down the hall and say, hey, Derek, we have a chance to get Cory Littleton. What do you think? Love him. Great team guy, locker room guy. Bring him in. It'd be great. Okay, done. So I wouldn't minimize that point at all, is that the Saints continue to try to surround Derek Carr with guys that he approves of. Obviously, Littleton was with the Panthers last year, so you're going to play the Panthers again. He's been in the division, knows your personnel, knows the Panthers personnel, all that sort of knows obviously the Bucs and the Falcons. You got the Falcons coming up in a few weeks, so there's that benefit. And then you played the Texans earlier this year, and he was on the Texans roster. So there's a lot of familiarity, there's a lot of synergy, a lot of reasons this makes sense. My sincere hope is we don't have to see Cory Littleton play, because as long as DeMario Davis and Pete Werner are healthy and keep playing at the level they are, great. You don't need to go sign anybody from your practice squad and elevate them to be active on game day. And you've got some young guys who obviously they've leaned on that have played well. I mean, you used a draft pick on DeMarco Jackson a year ago. Nephi Sewell's played well for you. I mean, let's hope that this is in time just even a non-story and a non-starter. But I do like the fact that you went and got a guy that's been super productive and played at a high level and is still in his 20s. He's not completely out of his physical prime. You can probably still run a little bit if you need him to. So Saints lose Jaylon Smith from their practice squad, but they sign a former Pro Bowler, Cory Littleton. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.